I texted Lacey a few days ago and I said, Lacey, wasn't the first event in Atlanta? And it was, and I was an attendee, and I remember asking myself, are you sure you can afford this $200 lunch? I was gonna say, it's gone up a little bit, but in hindsight, I'm so glad that I did, because when we talk about celebrating your now, this is really a full circle moment for me. So just to give you guys a little bit of backstory, my name is Courtney. I am from Miami, Florida, born and raised. I graduated from Florida State with my bachelor's in hospitality management. So right before, go Nose. So right before graduation, I landed my dream job at the time with Marriott International. And so after graduation, went back to work for the South Beach Marriott, trained there for a little bit, and then I eventually landed in Atlanta, which is ultimately where I wanted to be. So here I am, little girl, big world, trying to take it by the horns as best as I know how. This sounds like a very cookie cutter story, I know. So I moved to Atlanta, 22 years old, college graduate, no family, 3 friends. And I had to start building this life for myself. I did not know what that life was going to look like, but I knew what I wanted it to feel like. And so I started to work on building that life for myself. And so when I moved here, I was at the Atlanta Airport Marriott. I got to stay in the hotel until I found my first apartment. Y'all, I found my first apartment. It was on Washington Road. If you're, I know everybody's not local, but if you're from Atlanta, you don't want no apartment on Washington Road. I didn't know any better. I went to visit. They had just opened up that complex 2 months ago, so it was brand new. I went, the sun was shining, the birds were chirping, like the price was right. I was like, okay, this is perfect. It's right by my job, 10 minutes away, this is awesome. So one of my best friends, Carissa, she called me and she was like, Courtney, you know, I'm so proud of you. You moved to Atlanta, you got your apartment. We're celebrating. I'm coming to town, we're gonna go celebrate. I'm like, okay, celebrate your now. So I'm like, okay, cool, meet me at my job, we'll go to my house and get ready. She meets me at my job, we're getting ready to go to my house. I just finished furnishing it. It wasn't all that, but I did what I could. And we pull up to the house and I see that my door is like cracked a little bit. And I'm like, damn, did I leave? I tend to move very quickly, not being present sometimes. And I'm like, maybe I left it open. Then I noticed that my light is on. And I'm like, shit. So I called my dad. Of course, y'all know where this story is headed. I called my dad and I'm like, hey, I think someone broke into my apartment. He's like, don't go in there, call the cops, wait for them to come. So the cops come, sure enough, someone broke into my apartment. And again, I didn't have much, but what I did have, my TVs, my iPad, my MacBook, my jewelry, you know, they took all those things. And of course, I was devastated in that moment. But for real, y'all, I was like, listen, all I have is this moment right now. And you came here to celebrate me moving to Atlanta, getting my apartment, buying all these things, and even though they stole these possessions from me, they're not gonna steal this moment from me. Yes. So I went upstairs, I found me a dress that they didn't steal. I did my makeup, and we went out, and we celebrated, and I had a time. Thank y'all. I tell this story because I didn't realize then that me having the attitude of still celebrating no matter what would lead me to where I am right now. Yes. So obviously I broke my lease the next day, and I moved to my next apartment, which wasn't in the hood this time, y'all. It was a nice apartment. And I was working, I was dating, I met my now husband. And he took me off the market early. I didn't even get to be outside for real like that, y'all. So I'm moving up through the ranks with Marriott, you know, at a fairly decent pace. And by fairly decent, I mean decent enough to be a young black girl in a white male-dominated industry as far as management is concerned. And I felt like I hit a brick wall. I was working night shift. Of course, as the new manager, you get the shittiest shift. So I was working all nights. I was working every holiday. I was working every weekend. I was making all my numbers. I was busting my ass, making Mr. Marriott millions of dollars every year while I'm living on a $45,000 salary, which I know that sounds like $5 today, y'all, but in 2011, that was a lot of money to me. Even still, I felt like I wanted more. So I started to apply for different positions in the hotel, different hotels, and nothing was happening for me, like nothing was moving. And so I remember vividly, the front office manager position opened up at the Atlanta Marriott Marquis. Huge convention hotel, 3rd largest Marriott in the country, so much space and opportunity for upward mobility. They had a black general manager, which was rare, for a hotel of that magnitude, and she was a woman. So I was like, okay, I know this is where I'm supposed to be. So I interviewed for the position. I have 3 interviews, and they are intense. And if you've ever worked for Marriott or really any hotel chain for a corporate level, like, the interviews are gruesome. I made it through, and I know I did a great job. I had some friends that worked at the hotel. On the inside, like, Courtney, they loved you. Everybody's talking about you. You got it. I'm celebrating already. I ain't even got it yet. I get an email telling me that they decided to go forward with another candidate. Right. I remember it. So I'm like, damn. I remember vividly. I'm like, God, what the hell is going on? Like, what did I do? What am I doing wrong? Why is nothing happening for me? Like, I'm doing my best. I'm trying to show up, and nothing is falling into place. I remember feeling disappointed. I remember feeling stuck. And I also remember God's answer to my question, and it's gonna sound cliche, but I remember the words vividly in my head. Courtney, if you can't appreciate what you have right now, how can you be prepared for what I'm about to give you in the future? And it's not what I wanted to hear, but it was what I needed to hear, because I needed to do a mindset shift. And so I told myself, you know what, Courtney, you gotta focus on the now. You gotta live in the now, and you can't just live there, you gotta be happy there. You gotta find the silver lining there. You gotta learn how to celebrate those little everyday moments, because if you don't, those big moments that you're looking for, you're not gonna have them. You wanna know why? Because you're so focused on what's next, it's gonna be right in front of your face, and you're gonna miss it. That was one of the biggest mindset shifts of my adult life, because I had to learn how to balance being Courtney, the go-getter, the ambitious girl, the girl always trying to climb the ladder, with Courtney, the girl that basked in her presence, that learned how to be mindful, that romanticized those little everyday moments. Because what's really a little everyday moment anyway, right? So I eventually ended up leaving Marriott and going on to work for the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau, which actually turned out to be my dream job. So I worked with meeting planners from all over the country to sell Atlanta as a premier convention destination. I traveled to conferences all over the country to promote Atlanta. So your Super Bowls, your Final Fours, your college football playoff, your Miss America, your Miss Universe, all those events that are happening in Atlanta are by way of the Atlanta Convention and Visitors Bureau, and I am the liaison between meeting planners and those events. Thank you. So, So I get this new job. I love it. I got a salary increase, and then a few months later, I have my daughter, and then a few months later, I buy my first house, and then a few months later, I buy my first luxury car, and I'm like, okay, life is lifing right now. Like, everything is happening the way I want it to happen. So I decided to start a lifestyle blog. I wanted to incorporate Consuela, which is actually my middle name. I didn't make it up for Instagram. And I wanted to incorporate the analogy of a cup, because I always vowed to see the cup as half full versus half empty. So Cup of Consuela, which is the name of my blog, was born. This was in 2017. At the time, there were very few Black lifestyle bloggers in that space. And we didn't even really use the term influencer or, content creator as widely then as we do now. You had to have a blog, like a www.cupofconsuela.com, in order for brands to even want to work with you. So I started this blog because I wanted to share all the things that were happening in my life. I wanted to share my passions, my hobbies, and I wanted to connect with women like you in doing that. And this is the plot twist. With all the amazing things that were happening in my life, I was the unhappiest that I had ever been. Why, right? You got all this stuff going on. My husband, then boyfriend at the time, and I were going through a very rough patch. And I mean rough, like not gonna make it rough. I was a new mom with no family here. My mom, my dad, nothing, I had friends, but I'm getting emotional. But relationship on the rocks, new mom, no family. I have this new job that I'm making more money, but shit, gotta pay the mortgage, gotta pay daycare, gotta pay for this new car, all these things that have changed. The money was looking a little funny. And I know that, money can't buy you happiness and see all that, it can, but money can buy you the things that will make you happy. Money can buy you the opportunity to free up yourself so that you can operate as your best self. And so while money is not everything, it's important. And mine wasn't looking right, so I wasn't feeling too great. I'm sorry, y'all. I cry all the time. Lacey, Lacey, I don't. Okay. I don't. Okay, so she's like, no more shots. I don't need another shot. It's just, so I found myself at an impasse because now I'm like, okay, I've done all this self-work. You know, I'm focused on being present, but what do you do when your now doesn't feel like celebrating, right? You're in the ruts with your job or with your man or with your kids or with yourself. You're not feeling like yourself. You're not feeling like things are worthy of celebrating, but somehow you're supposed to just be present in the moment and be happy and be joyous. And sometimes that feels impossible. And I want to tell you as a living testimony that it's not impossible and that you can do it. And the number one thing is being present. And then the second thing is being mindful. And when you talked about mindfulness, it really spoke to me because I was reading about it when Lacey sent me the theme, and I'm like, damn, this is something I have been unknowingly practicing. And I think a lot of us do that, but we don't tap into that level of consciousness to know this is what you're doing. You're being mindful. And it's about acknowledging your present, but also accepting and acknowledging your thoughts and your feelings about your present, right? And once you acknowledge and accept it, you can change it, right? And if you can change your now, then you can celebrate your now because you have now put yourself back in control of your own destiny. So over the last decade, I've been practicing not just being mindful and present, but also celebrating every little moment. Now this one I'm gonna use my phone because I remember that first part, but this part. So I celebrated when I got my first brand partnership with Dunkin' Donuts, y'all, for $35. 2017. You could not tell me I wasn't the top blogger in the world. Dunkin' Donuts? $35 felt like $3,500. I celebrated when I hit 10,000 followers on Instagram because back in the day, you had to have 10,000 followers to do the little swipe up, remember? So you couldn't have any links, you couldn't sell anything. Like you had to be like, go to the link in my bio. And I'm like, oh, wait till I get to 10,000 followers. So I celebrated when I got to 10,000 followers. I celebrated when my daughter started talking and walking because as I'm growing and building, my daughter is growing, you know, and I have to celebrate those moments too. I celebrated when I got my first 3-figure brand deal with Dove. It was $500. And I got my first 4-figure brand deal with Starbucks. And I got my first 5-figure brand deal with Elijah Craig. And if y'all don't know me, I love my bourbon, so that was a very special, you know, this was a very special moment for me. I celebrated when I got my first press article in Voyage Atlanta. I thought I was famous. I celebrated when my husband decided to pivot in his 40s and do a complete career change, get his CDL, and start in the trucking industry, which was so scary to me at the time. I celebrated when I published my second ebook. I didn't tell you about my first one. My first ebook I published, you guys, and I sold it for $5 because I was so afraid that nobody would buy it. Some of y'all probably have it. Listen, it was the Daniel Fast ebook. It was a cookbook of plant-based recipes, and I sold 1,000 copies in 7 days, and I had no clue. $5. I was like, it's $5. Y'all can help me out. So I celebrated when I published my second ebook, which was another cookbook. My third ebook was an influencer education ebook, and my fourth one, which was all about pitching to brands and getting the money that you deserve as an influencer. I celebrated when my daughter graduated from pre-K and started private school, and she's just so bright and just acting like her mom and thinking she's also an influencer. I celebrated when my husband asked me to marry him. And then we had our dream wedding and then our dream honeymoon, and I celebrated some more. I celebrated when I randomly realized that I had closed $60,000 in brand deals while still working my corporate job, like on accident. I didn't even save the money, it was just coming in and going out. But when I sat down and I calculated, I was like, oh wow, that was pretty good. And then the next year I went on to close over $200,000 in brand deals while still working my corporate job. I celebrated so much that I finally got the courage to take the leap and walk away from my 6-figure corporate job to pursue my blogging business full time. And it was scary. And then God did me one better and allowed my husband and I to purchase our first tractor trailer in cash and start our family trucking business. This was not a part of my speech, but I have to acknowledge this man right here, who started out being just a photographer. Then he became my photographer, and now he is my friend. And Mike and I both started our journeys really transitioning away from our corporate jobs and building our own businesses together. I was his first retainer client. And we have really gone through the trenches and been there and supported each other through these last 3 years, and it's been amazing. We didn't. I recommended Mike to Lacey, and she was like, okay, I'm gonna look into it. But y'all, Mike is that guy, so he's a little pricey, and I know that. But I walked in and I see him and I'm like, what the hell? Here I am talking about my journey, and a person that was such a pivotal part of my journey is standing right next to me. If that's not full circle, y'all, I don't know what is. So entrepreneurship, I will say, has not been a walk in the park. It's been highs and it's been lows. Some days I'd be like, let me call these people and see if my job is still available. Just kidding, but I really do embrace the high and the low moments. And listening to myself speak, I feel really grateful. And not just because of all of the amazing things that I just mentioned, but really because there's a lot of ugly things that happened in the midst of all those great things. Like me finally being excited to carry my second child in this amazing and beautiful space with my husband, to be told at my 10-week appointment that my baby doesn't have a heartbeat. I still chose to see the silver lining, because I know that when you focus on the good gets better. That's right. My mother always told me, you complain about having no shoes and then you meet a man with no feet. Gratitude is everything, and a grateful heart is a magnet for miracles, trust me. I want you to know that there is nothing that's happening right now in this moment that you won't be able to see yourself through. Because like she said, God is already working it out. And if you don't believe in God, the universe, whatever, there is a higher power that is working double time on your behalf. Your job is to worry about right now, not tomorrow, not the next day, not the next day, right now, because everything else, that's their job. That's God's job. So I just want to close by saying, I want everybody to close your eyes. And you don't have to repeat after me. You don't have to say it. I just want you to listen. And this is a quote, and it's very simple, but it really, really resonates with me. And that is, yesterday is history, tomorrow's a mystery, but today is a gift. That's why we call it the present. Amen. I'm gonna close, because I'm getting emotional. And this wasn't so bad. Y'all were a good audience. Okay. I'm gonna close by saying that your now, no matter what it looks like, your now is worthy of being celebrated. And don't let anybody, including yourself, convince you of anything different. Thank you so much. Thank you, I love you.